The Ashford Grand Hotel smelled like money I'd never wanted to spend. Lilies and roses arranged in crystal vases taller than my grandson would be if my son ever had the decency to give me one. White marble floors so polished I could see my reflection, and I looked exactly like what I was, a man in a borrowed suit standing in a lobby full of people who'd never worked a day with their hands. I'd driven 6 hours for this, left at 4 in the morning because Rachel wanted to arrive early, help with whatever last-minute chaos weddings always brought. My wife had that optimistic streak that made her believe family meant something, even when your own son hadn't called you in 8 months, except to demand you contribute appropriately to his wedding fund. The elevator doors opened on the 3rd floor, conference room C. That's what the invitation said, though calling it a conference room was like calling a Bentley a car. Technically accurate, completely missing the point. I pushed through the double doors. The room swallowed sound. High ceilings, chandeliers that probably cost more than my first house, round tables draped in ivory cloth. Maybe 200 people already seated, and I recognized exactly none of them. Not the crowd from Jake's college graduation, not the folks from his old neighborhood. These were different people, shinier people. Rachel squeezed my hand. There's Jake. My son stood near the front, adjusting his tie. 28 years old, looked 40 in that tuxedo. When had he gotten so stiff? So careful with his movements, like someone had taught him how the wealthy hold their shoulders. I started toward him. "Excuse me?" A woman's voice, sharp as a knife wrapped in silk. "You're in the wrong section." I turned. She was maybe 50, blonde hair sprayed into submission, wearing a dress that cost what I used to make in a month. Her eyes traveled down my suit, the one I'd bought at a department store, the one Rachel said looked fine, and her mouth twitched. "I'm the groom's father," I said. "Oh." She blinked, glanced at someone behind me. "Oh, I see. Well, family seating is... Actually, could you wait here for just a moment?" She didn't wait for my answer, just turned and walked toward a younger woman in an even more expensive dress. I watched them whisper, watched the younger woman's eyes find me across the room. That was her, Melissa, my son's bride. I'd met her twice, once at a restaurant where she'd ordered the most expensive wine and barely spoken to me. Once at their apartment where she'd answered the door, seen me holding a housewarming gift and said Jake wasn't home even though I could hear his voice from the bedroom. She started walking toward me, long stride, confident, the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. "Mr. Brennan," she smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "What a surprise." "Surprise?" I kept my voice level. "I'm his father." "Of course. It's just that Jake mentioned you might not be able to make it. Something about work?" I hadn't worked in 3 years, sold my construction company for enough money to retire at 55, and Jake knew it because I'd called him the day the deal closed. He'd said congratulations and hung up before I could tell him I'd set aside money for his future. "I'm here," I said. "I can see that." Melissa's smile widened, showing teeth. "The thing is, we've had some last-minute changes with the seating arrangements. Very complicated, you understand. And I'm afraid... Where's Jake?" Rachel's voice, quiet but firm. She'd moved up beside me, her small frame somehow making me feel steadier. "Busy with groomsman duties." Melissa barely glanced at her. "As I was saying, we've had to make some adjustments, and unfortunately there isn't space. There are empty chairs everywhere," I said, "reserved for confirmed guests. I'm his father." "Yes, you've mentioned that." Her voice dropped, intimate, like she was sharing a secret. "But the reality is, Mr. Brennan, Jake has moved on from that part of his life. He's building something new here, something better, and sometimes that means leaving certain elements behind." Behind her, the older woman, Melissa's mother, had to be, watched with a satisfied smirk. "Certain elements," I repeated, "people from his old life, before he understood what he was capable of." She tilted her head. Before he met the right kind of people. The words hung there, crystal clear in their meaning. I felt Rachel's hand tighten on my arm. I see, I said. I knew you'd understand. Melissa's relief was genuine. It's nothing personal. It's just that we're establishing a certain standard here, a certain level. And honestly, looking at this from Jake's perspective, having his blue-collar background on display might create the wrong impression with some very important people. Blue-collar background. You know what I mean. She waved her hand, dismissive. The construction thing, the, manual labor history. It's not the image we're projecting. I heard Rachel inhale sharply beside me. Jake worked construction summers, I said quietly, to pay for his books. I seem to remember him being proud of that. That was before he understood who he really was. Melissa's mother had joined us now, sliding up beside her daughter like a snake scenting prey. Before he met Melissa, before he had access to the opportunities we've provided. Opportunities. Introductions, connections, a real future. The mother, I'd forgotten her name, something pretentious, looked me up and down. Not that you'd understand. No offense, but you're from a different world. Mom's right, Melissa said. We're a different class than you. There it was. Said out loud, no pretense left. Does Jake know you're doing this? Rachel's voice shook. Jake understands. Melissa's certainty was absolute. He's embarrassed, honestly, having to explain where he came from. It's been difficult for him, establishing credibility with our circle when people keep asking about his family background. I looked past them toward the front of the room. Jake was still adjusting his tie, talking to a groomsman, laughing at something. He hadn't looked our way once. So, you want us to leave? I said. I think that would be best. Melissa's mother stepped closer, lowering her voice. Between us, we need to be very careful about optics today. Senator Whitmore is here, the Blackwell family. These are people who matter, and having someone in an off-the-rack suit sitting in the family section would raise questions. Questions about what? Rachel asked. About whether Jake is really one of us. Melissa said it like it was obvious. About whether this marriage is appropriate. About the kind of family he's bringing into ours. I felt something shift inside my chest. Something cold and calculating that I'd kept buried for 3 years, since the day I'd shaken hands with the buyer who'd paid $8 million for the company I'd built from nothing. I understand, I said. Melissa's relief was palpable. Thank you. I knew you'd be reasonable. There is one small issue, I continued, my voice pleasant, conversational. The money. What money? The contribution Jake mentioned. The $50,000 I transferred last month for the wedding. Melissa blinked. Her mother's smirk faltered. That was for expenses, Melissa said carefully. I'm aware, and since I'm not welcome at the wedding, I assume you'll be refunding it. That's not how this works. The mother's voice had lost its pretend warmth. That money was a gift. Gifts are given to people you want at your celebration, I said. You've made it clear I'm not wanted, so I'd like my money back. That's ridiculous. Melissa's face was flushing. You can't just... Actually, I pulled out my phone, kept my tone light. My lawyer might have a different opinion, along with my accountant, and possibly the IRS, considering the gift tax implications if you're refusing to acknowledge this as a wedding expense. The mother's eyes narrowed. Are you threatening us? No, ma'am, just clarifying the situation. I smiled. Since we're being so honest about class and appropriateness. You son of a... She caught herself, glanced around at the nearby guests who'd started to notice the commotion. Everything all right? A man in hotel staff uniform, name tag reading manager, appeared at Melissa's elbow. Fine, Melissa said quickly. Just a small confusion about seating. Actually, I said, my voice carrying now, loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I'm being asked to leave because I'm not the right class of people for this wedding." The manager's eyebrows shot up. Melissa's face went white. "That's not—" she started. "Those were your exact words," Rachel said, her voice steady. "Different class." "Sir," the manager said carefully, "this is a private event. I'm aware I'm the groom's father. I was invited. I have the invitation in my jacket if you'd like to see it." "He doesn't understand the situation," Melissa hissed to the manager. "This is a family matter." "Then perhaps," the manager said diplomatically, "we should move this conversation somewhere more private." "No." Melissa's mother drew herself up. "No, that won't be necessary. He's leaving." She reached out, actually put her hand on my chest to push me backward. I didn't move, just stood there, solid, while she shoved against me like I was a wall. "Ma'am," the manager started. "Get him out," she demanded. "He's disrupting my daughter's wedding." More guests were watching now. I could see phones coming out, that universal reflex of the modern world. Something interesting is happening. Better record it. "Dad?" Jake's voice. Finally. He stood 10 feet away, his face pale, his groomsman beside him looking deeply uncomfortable. "Jake," I said, "could you explain to your bride that I'm supposed to be here?" He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Melissa, then at me, then at the floor. "I think," he said slowly, "maybe it's better if you go." Rachel made a sound beside me, something between a gasp and a sob. "You think it's better," I repeated. "It's complicated." Jake wouldn't meet my eyes. "There are a lot of important people here, and Melissa's right. We need to consider." "Consider what?" My voice was still calm, still level, but something in my tone made Jake step back. "Consider that you're ashamed of where you came from. Consider that these people matter more than your own father. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, and it sounded wrong even to my own ears. "Fair is working 60-hour weeks to pay for your college. Fair is driving 12 hours round trip every parent's weekend because you missed me. Fair is setting aside $500,000 in a trust fund for your future, which I was going to tell you about today." Jake's eyes widened. Melissa's mouth opened. "But you're right," I continued. "This isn't fair. Fair would be me dragging you outside and having the conversation your mother and I should have had years ago about respect and loyalty and what family actually means. Instead, I'm going to do what you want. I'm going to leave." "Mr. Brennan," the manager started. "Don't worry, I'm going." I turned to Melissa. "Enjoy your wedding. Enjoy your senator and your Blackwells and your very important people. Enjoy every minute of pretending you're something you're not." "We don't have to pretend," her mother snapped. "We are better than you." "Mom," Melissa hissed, but her eyes betrayed her. She agreed. I looked at my son one more time. He stood there in his expensive tuxedo, surrounded by his new people, and he looked like a stranger. "Goodbye, Jake," I said. I took Rachel's hand and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Melissa's mother say something to the manager about trashy people, and, thank God that's over. Heard nervous laughter from the guests who'd witnessed everything. The doors closed behind us with a soft click. We stood in the hallway, the muffled sounds of the wedding preparations continuing inside like nothing had happened. Rachel was crying silently, her shoulders shaking. I felt empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left just the shell. Then something else filled the space, something cold and hard and very, very patient. I pulled out my phone. "What are you doing?" Rachel whispered. I scrolled through my contacts, found the name I wanted, hit call. "I'm calling my banker," I said. "Why?" I listened to the phone ring once, twice. "Because," I said quietly, watching my reflection in the polished hallway mirror, "they wanted to know what class I am. I think it's time I showed them." Richard Brennan. My banker's voice, surprised. Didn't expect to hear from you on a Saturday. I need to access the Ashford accounts, I said. All of them. And I need you to pull every transaction report from the last 12 months involving my son. Rachel's eyes widened. Is there a problem? The banker asked. I smiled at my reflection. It wasn't a nice smile. No problem at all, I said. I'm just beginning to understand the situation, and I think we need to make some adjustments. Behind me, through the closed doors, I could hear music starting. The wedding was beginning. Mine was just ending, or so they thought. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. The drive home took 7 hours because Rachel insisted we stop twice. Once because she was crying too hard to let me keep driving. Once because I was gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles had gone white, and she was afraid I'd forget to breathe. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? Sunday morning, I sat in my home office, door closed, coffee going cold on the desk while I read through documents my banker had emailed at 6 a.m. Harvey Stillman didn't get rich by keeping banker's hours. He'd spent Saturday night pulling everything I'd asked for. The picture they painted made my stomach turn. Jake had been using my name for 18 months. Every form he'd filled out for wedding vendors, every credit application, every negotiation. He'd listed me as the financial guarantor. Not explicitly, nothing illegal, just careful wording that made vendors assume I was backing everything. The venue deposit, catering, flowers, band, photographer, videographer. All of it structured to make vendors believe my son had access to serious money because of dear old dad. The wedding alone was going to cost $400,000. I hadn't contributed $50,000. I'd contributed $200,000 over 6 months. Small transfers Jake had called help with expenses and emergency funds and just temporary loans. There were no loans. There was never going to be payback. I scrolled through bank statements, credit reports, vendor contracts. My name appeared 17 times, always carefully, always just enough to make people think Jake had the Brennan resources behind him. Coffee's fresh, Rachel said from the doorway. I looked up. She'd aged 10 years in the last 24 hours, new lines around her eyes, gray in her hair I'd never noticed before. Thanks. She set a new mug on my desk, picked up the cold one, didn't leave. How bad? She asked. Bad. Is he going to lose the apartment? I pulled up another document. The apartment's in his name, but I'm listed as an emergency contact with financial oversight privileges. It's a penthouse in the Riverside Towers, $4,200 a month. Rachel's face went pale. How is he affording that? He's not. They gave him the lease based on employment verification from Blackwell Industries and a reference letter that mentions his substantial family resources. He's committing fraud. No. I leaned back, rubbed my eyes. He's committing stupidity. Everything he's done is legal. Barely. He's just built a house of cards on the assumption that I'll keep supporting him forever. Will you? I looked at her. They kicked me out of his wedding. I know. Called me trash. Said I was the wrong class. I was there. His bride told me to my face that I was an embarrassment. Richard. Rachel's voice was gentle. I need to know what you're planning. I turned back to the monitor. I'm planning to give them exactly what they asked for. Which is? Distance. I clicked through another document. They want me out of their lives. Fine. I'll get out. Completely. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. That's not all you're planning, she said finally. I didn't answer. Richard. She came around the desk, crouched beside my chair so she could look up at my face. I know that tone. I've been married to you for 32 years. Whatever you're thinking right now. I'm thinking, I interrupted quietly, that my son used me, that he took my money, dropped my name, built his entire new life on the foundation I provided, and then decided I wasn't good enough to be seen in public. He's confused. That woman showed me exactly who my son really is. I met Rachel's eyes, and I think it's time I showed him exactly who his father really is. By doing what? By teaching him what happens when you burn the bridge that's holding you up. Rachel stood slowly. That sounds like revenge. Does it? Richard, they think I'm trash, I said, my voice perfectly calm. They think I'm some embarrassing relic from Jake's unfortunate past. They have no idea what I built, what I'm capable of, what I'm worth, and I think it's time they learned. By hurting our son? By educating him. I turned back to the screen. The best lessons are the ones that cost something. Rachel didn't answer, just stood there with the cold coffee mug in her hands, watching me work. What are you going to do? She asked finally. I'm going to make a phone call. I picked up my cell. And then I'm going to have a conversation with Jake's landlord. And then I'm going to have a very interesting discussion with Blackwell Industries. And then, stop! Rachel's voice was sharp. Just stop. Tell me what you're really planning. I looked at her for a long moment. I'm going to pull every dollar I've ever given him, I said. I'm going to remove my name from every document where he's used me as leverage. I'm going to make sure every vendor knows the truth, that Jake Brennan has no family resources backing him up. And then I'm going to watch what happens when reality catches up with his new life. That will destroy him. No, I said, that will teach him. There's a difference. Is there? I didn't have an answer for that. Rachel set the coffee mug down carefully. I can't stop you. No, but I need you to promise me something. I waited. Promise me you won't lose yourself in this, she said quietly. Promise me you'll remember who you are, not what they called you, not what they made you feel, but who you actually are. And who's that? A better man than they'll ever be. She touched my shoulder. Don't let them change that. She left, closing the door softly behind her. I sat there for another minute, staring at the numbers on the screen. 200,000 already gone, another 100,000 in implicit guarantees, contracts Jake had signed assuming I'd cover the bills. My phone buzzed. Text message from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Brennan, this is Todd Patterson. I was a groomsman at the wedding yesterday. I think you should see something. Can I call you? I stared at the message, replied, Yes. The phone rang 30 seconds later. Mr. Brennan. Young voice, nervous. I hope I'm not overstepping. I got your number from the vendor contact list Jake had. I'm one of his friends from college. I remember you, I lied. Listen, I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to say it. After you left yesterday, Melissa and her mother were laughing about it, and someone recorded them. The video's been circulating among the wedding guests. Something cold settled in my stomach. Laughing. Making jokes about your suit, about your job history, about how relieved they were that you left before the real guests arrived. He paused. It's really ugly, Mr. Brennan, and I thought you should know because Jake was standing right there. He didn't stop them. I see. I can send you the video if you want. I know this probably sounds like I'm stirring up trouble, but if someone treated my father like that, send it, I said. Okay. I just want you to know, not all of Jake's friends think this was okay. Some of us grew up like you did. We know what it takes to build something from nothing, and what happened yesterday was wrong. Thank you, Todd. One more thing. His voice dropped. I overheard Melissa's mother on the phone with someone this morning. She was talking about how she handled the construction worker situation and how Jake needs to completely cut ties with his old life if he wants to be taken seriously in their circles. She said some pretty specific things about making sure you stay away from future family events. How specific? She called you a financial and social liability, Said you were fortunate. They let you come to the wedding at all. Said she's going to make sure Jake understands the importance of clean breaks from embarrassing associations. The cold in my stomach spread outward, filling my chest, my arms, my head, crystal clear and perfectly focused. Mr. Brennan, you still there? I'm here. I'm really sorry this happened. Don't be. My voice sounded strange, distant. Thank you for the information. I hung up. The video arrived 30 seconds later. I pressed play. The footage was shaky, clearly shot on someone's phone from across the room, but the audio was perfect. Melissa's voice bright with laughter. Did you see his face when Mom said we're a different class? I thought he was going to cry. Her mother. Well, it's true. I don't know what Jake was thinking, inviting him at all. The man showed up looking like he was attending a funeral at a union hall. More laughter from the people around them. Jake's voice, quieter. He's my father. Melissa. And we love him for that, sweetie. But there's a reason you don't take him to the club. Some people just don't fit in certain environments. Her mother. It's genetic, really. You can take the man out of the construction site, but you can't take the construction site out of the man. Huge laughter at that. Jake. That's a little harsh. Melissa's mother. Oh, please, you've said worse. You told me yourself you cringe every time he tells those blue-collar stories about building the company from scratch. Like anyone cares. Jake. I didn't mean… Melissa. Of course you did. You're embarrassed. We all would be. The important thing is he's gone now, and we can enjoy the evening with people who actually matter. The video ended. I sat very still, phone in my hand, listening to the silence in my house. Rachel knocked softly, pushed the door open. Richard, you okay? I played the video for her without saying anything. When it finished, she was crying again. Not the shocked tears from yesterday. Something else. Something that looked like heartbreak mixed with fury. Call Harvey, she said quietly. What? Call your banker, call your lawyer, call whoever you need to call. She wiped her eyes, and when she looked at me, her face was hard. You were right. They need to learn what happens when you treat people like garbage, and I think it's time they got their education. Rachel, I'm serious. She crossed her arms. I tried to give Jake the benefit of the doubt. I tried to believe he was just confused, just overwhelmed by that awful woman. But he stood there. He stood there and let them laugh about you, about us, about the life we built and the sacrifices we made to give him opportunities. So what are you saying? I'm saying burn it down. Her voice was steel. Whatever you're planning, whatever it takes. They wanted a war? Give them one. I looked at my wife, this woman who'd stood beside me through 20-hour workdays and failed deals and near bankruptcy, and every hard year it took to build something real. This woman who'd never asked for fancy clothes or expensive vacations, who'd been happy with a home we could afford and enough left over to save for our son's future. This woman whose heart they'd just broken for entertainment. Okay, I said. I picked up the phone. Harvey answered on the first ring. Richard, I was hoping you'd call back. I've been going through everything. There are some issues you need to know about. Tell me. Your son has been using your financial reputation as collateral in ways that, while not illegal, are definitely ethically questionable. The wedding venue, for example. They gave him a premium date because he mentioned your portfolio value in his initial inquiry. How did he know my portfolio value? That's the interesting part. Papers rustled on Harvey's end. He didn't know specifics. He just threw out a number that was close enough to make them take him seriously. 8 million. Which means either he's very good at guessing or someone told him about the company sale. I closed my eyes. I told him. 3 years ago. The day the deal closed. And he's been dining out on it ever since. Harvey paused. Richard, your son has built an entire financial life on the assumption that you're his safety net. And from what I'm seeing, he's in about $600,000 deep in commitments he can't actually afford. What happens if I remove that safety net? His credit gets obliterated, his lease gets questioned, his vendors start asking for immediate payment, and he either comes up with the money himself or everything comes crashing down. How fast? Could be weeks, could be months. Depends on how fast the dominoes fall. Can you make them fall faster? Silence on the other end. Richard, Harvey said carefully, what are you asking me to do? I'm asking if there's a legal way to ensure every person and company who assumed I was backing Jake's lifestyle finds out very quickly that they were wrong. More silence. There might be, Harvey said finally. I could draft a letter, official statement clarifying that you are not and have never been financially responsible for Jake's personal obligations. Send it to every vendor on his contact lists, every creditor, his landlord, his employer. His employer? Blackwell Industries. He works in their investment division. They gave him the position based partly on his application, which prominently mentioned his family background in successful construction enterprise management. Jesus. The letter would be completely legal, Harvey continued. Just a clarification. But it would effectively pull the rug out from under him. Companies would start asking questions. Credit would tighten. His entire house of cards would start to shake. Do it, I said. Richard, are you sure? I'm watching a video right now of my son standing next to his bride while she and her mother mock me for entertainment. They called me a genetic embarrassment. They laughed about how glad they were that I left. And my son stood there and let them. Harvey was quiet. Do it, I repeated. Draft the letter. Send it everywhere. Make sure there's no ambiguity about where I stand. This is going to hurt him. Good. Richard. They wanted to know what class I am, I said. I'm the class that pays his own way. The class that earns what he has. The class that doesn't need to use his father as a meal ticket and then kick him out of his wedding. And I think it's time Jake learned what happens when you bite the hand that's holding you up. All right, Harvey said. I'll have the letter drafted by tomorrow. You'll need to review it before I send it. How comprehensive can you make it? What do you mean? I mean, can you include specific numbers, specific instances of Jake using my name as leverage? I can be very specific. Good. I want them to know exactly how much of his new life was built on me. And I want them to know exactly how much he's about to lose. This feels like more than just financial correction, Harvey said quietly. This feels personal. It is personal. I watched Rachel standing in the doorway, arms crossed, face hard. They made it personal when they decided I was trash. Now they're going to find out what trash can do when you throw it away. Colorful. Just draft the letter. I hung up. Rachel came over, wrapped her arms around me from behind, rested her chin on my shoulder. I meant what I said, she whispered. Don't lose yourself in this. I won't. Promise me. I turned in her arms, looked at her face. I promise I'll remember who I am, but I'm not going to apologize for showing them who they messed with. She nodded. Then do it right. Do it thoroughly, and make sure they never forget. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Oh, I said. They won't. The social destruction started on Friday. I didn't plan it, didn't orchestrate it. Just watched it happen with the same fascination you'd watch a building collapse. Inevitable, devastating, strangely beautiful in its totality. Todd Patterson, the groomsman who'd sent me the video, called Friday morning. Mr. Brennan, I thought you should know. That video went viral in their social circle. How viral? It's been shared in at least 6 different group chats. Everyone who was at the wedding has seen it. And people are not reacting the way Melissa expected. How are they reacting? They're calling her out, saying she was cruel, saying her mother was classist and terrible. There's a whole thread about how nobody should treat someone's father that way, regardless of background. I sat down. You're serious? Apparently, a lot of people at that wedding came from working-class backgrounds. They have parents who worked construction or retail or service jobs, and watching Melissa and her mother mock you for the same stuff their own parents did, it didn't go over well. What about Jake? He's getting destroyed. Everyone saw him standing there while his bride and mother-in-law laughed. People are calling him spineless, saying he betrayed his own father for social climbing points. It's brutal. Good. Todd was quiet for a moment. Mr. Brennan, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Are you trying to ruin them, or are you trying to teach Jake something? Does it matter? It might, because right now, you're winning. They're hemorrhaging social capital. Melissa's mother is being disinvited from country club events. Melissa herself is getting dropped from committees. The family's reputation is cratering. But Jake's caught in the middle of it, and I don't know if he understands why this is happening. What do you think he understands? I think he understands his life is falling apart. I don't know if he understands it's because he made a choice to abandon his father for people who only cared about his perceived wealth. Then maybe someone should explain it to him. Maybe someone should. Todd paused. Or maybe you should, before this goes too far. How much farther can it go? Mr. Brennan, Melissa's mother tried to get you banned from the country club yesterday. She's telling everyone you're dangerous, unhinged, that you're stalking them. I haven't contacted them once. I know, which is why it's backfiring. Everyone knows she's lying. Everyone knows she's desperate, and it's making everything worse. What do you want me to do? I don't know. I just thought you should know what's happening. He hung up. I sat in my office thinking about that. The social destruction was happening faster than I'd anticipated, and I hadn't even started the financial phase yet. That came on Saturday. Harvey called at 8 a.m. Richard, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where Jake's employer is asking questions. Blackwell Industries wants to verify his employment application. Specifically, they want to confirm his statement about coming from a family of successful construction enterprise management. What did you tell them? Nothing yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Because here's the thing. Technically, he didn't lie. You did own a successful construction company. The question is whether his implication that he has ongoing access to that success was misleading. It was misleading. I know. But proving that in a way that gets him fired is tricky. Unless what? Unless you're willing to make a statement saying that Jake has no involvement in or access to your business assets, that you sold the company, that he received no inheritance from the sale, and that his current financial position is entirely independent of your resources. That's all true. I know. But if I send that statement to Blackwell, they'll probably fire him. He misrepresented his background to get the job. They won't tolerate that. I closed my eyes. Is there any other outcome? They could move him to a different position, lower pay, less prestige, or they could just flag his file and watch him closely. But honestly, with the current social media storm around him and Melissa, they're probably looking for an excuse to cut ties. What social media storm? You haven't seen? Harvey sounded surprised. The wedding video went fully public last night. Someone posted it on a local news forum. It's getting picked up by local media. There are articles about classism at high society weddings, using your story as the centerpiece. Jesus. It's not bad press for you, Harvey said quickly. You're the victim in all of this. But Jake and Melissa are getting crucified, and Blackwell Industries doesn't want that association with their company. So if you send the statement, he loses his job, probably within a week. I thought about that. Thought about my son, who'd worked hard to get that position, who'd been proud of the Blackwell name on his business card. Thought about him standing in that ballroom, refusing to defend me while his bride mocked my suit. Send it, I said. Richard, send the statement. He misled them. He used my reputation to get something he hadn't earned. They deserve to know the truth. This is going to destroy him financially. Then he'll learn to build something real instead of building on lies. Harvey sighed. All right, I'll send it Monday morning. Thank you. Richard, are you sure you want to keep pushing? You've already made your point. The wedding video went public. The vendors are demanding payment. His reputation is damaged. At some point, you're going to cross from teaching a lesson to just being cruel. Did you watch the video? I asked. Yes. All of it? Including the part where my son stood there while they laughed about me being a genetic embarrassment? Silence. I'm not being cruel, I said quietly. I'm being thorough. Jake needs to learn that actions have consequences, real consequences, not just hurt feelings or awkward conversations. He needs to lose everything he built on my back, and then he needs to figure out who he really is without it. What if he can't? Then that's his failure, not mine. I gave him every advantage, every opportunity, and he threw it away because he was embarrassed of where he came from. That's on him. All right, Harvey said. I'll send the statement Monday. Sunday was quiet. Too quiet. Like the calm before something worse. Rachel and I went to church, something we hadn't done regularly in years. We sat in the back, listened to a sermon about forgiveness and second chances, and I felt the irony like a weight. On the way home, Rachel said, "Do you think we're doing the right thing? You're the one who told me to burn it down." I know. But that was when I was angry. Now I'm just, I don't know, sad. Me too. Do you miss him? I thought about that. I miss the kid he used to be, the one who worked construction summers and came home with stories about the crew, the one who was proud to tell his college friends his dad built buildings. That kid I miss. What about the man he became? I don't know that man, and apparently he doesn't want to know me. We drove in silence for a while. The statement Harvey's sending, Rachel said finally. The one that'll cost Jake his job, are you sure? Are you having second thoughts? I'm having all the thoughts, but I trust you. If you think this is necessary, I don't know if it's necessary, I admitted. I just know it's what needs to happen. Jake built his life on a foundation of my money and my reputation. That foundation needs to come down. And then he needs to decide what he's going to build on his own. What if he builds nothing? Then I'll know I raised a son who wasn't strong enough to stand on his own. And that'll be the worst punishment of all. Not for him. For me. Monday morning came with 3 phone calls before 9 a.m. The first was from Jake's landlord. Mr. Brennan, I wanted to inform you that we're terminating your son's lease effective end of month. He's violated the terms of his application by misrepresenting his financial backing. I understand. He has 30 days to vacate. After that, we'll pursue eviction proceedings if necessary. That's your prerogative. I thought you'd want to know. The second call was from the wedding venue. Mr. Brennan, we're filing a lawsuit against Jake Brennan for breach of contract. The outstanding balance is $83,000, and we've been unable to reach him about payment arrangements. That's between you and him. We thought you'd want to know that this will appear on his credit report. It may impact his ability to secure housing or credit in the future. Again, that's between you and him. Are you sure you won't reconsider helping? I'm certain. The third call was from Jake. Dad. His voice was raw. Please, I'm begging you, make this stop. I can't make it stop, Jake. I can only tell the truth. And the truth is that you're responsible for your own life. They're evicting me. So, find a new apartment. I can't afford anything without your reference. Then find something you can afford on your own. The venue is suing me. Then you should probably have thought about that before signing contracts you couldn't honor. I'm going to lose my job. Then you should probably have thought about that before misrepresenting your background on your employment application. You're destroying me. He was crying now. You're destroying everything. No, I said, and my voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. You destroyed this when you chose to be ashamed of me, when you let your bride and her mother treat me like garbage, when you stood there and laughed while they mocked everything I built. I'm just removing the scaffolding you built your life on. What happens next is entirely up to you. I can't do this alone. You should have thought of that before you threw me away. Dad, please, don't call me again unless you're ready to have a real conversation. Not about money, not about saving you. A real conversation about what you did and why it was wrong and what you're going to do differently. I hung up. Rachel was standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. I heard, she said. Was I too harsh? I don't know anymore. She wiped her eyes. I don't know what's too harsh and what's necessary. I just know our son is falling apart and we're watching it happen. He needs to fall apart, so he can put himself back together the right way. What if he can't? I didn't have an answer for that. Tuesday brought the news I'd been waiting for. Harvey called at noon. Blackwell Industries terminated Jake's employment this morning. What was the reason? Officially, misrepresentation of background on his employment application. Unofficially, they don't want the PR nightmare of being associated with the guy from the viral wedding video. How much severance? 2 weeks, standard. So he has 2 weeks' salary to cover his current rent, find a new apartment, deal with the wedding vendors, and figure out his next move. Approximately, yes. How long before he's completely broke? Depends on his savings. But given what I've seen of his spending patterns, maybe 4 weeks, 6 if he's careful, which, based on everything we know about him, seems unlikely. So by end of January, he'll have nothing. Most likely. I sat with that for a moment. My son, broke, unemployed, evicted, sued, all because I'd decided to tell the truth about our relationship. All because he'd decided to be ashamed of me. Richard, Harvey's voice. You still there? I'm here. How do you feel about this? I feel like I'm doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. What does that mean? It means I'm teaching him a lesson he needs to learn. But I'm also doing it because I'm hurt and angry and I want him to suffer like I suffered. And I'm not sure which motivation is stronger. Does it matter? Probably not. The outcome's the same either way. What happens when he hits rock bottom? Harvey asked. What happens when he's got nothing left? Then he'll have a choice. He can come to me, apologize sincerely, and we'll talk about what rebuilding looks like. Or he can stay with Melissa and her family, let them bail him out, and prove that he really does value their approval more than his relationship with me. And if he chooses them, then I'll know who my son really is, and I'll grieve for the kid he used to be, and I'll move on. That's cold. It's reality. You can't force someone to value you, Harvey. You can only show them what life looks like without you, and let them decide if they want you back. For what it's worth, Harvey said, I think you're handling this better than most people would. Am I? Because I feel like I'm falling apart. You're holding it together. That's what matters. Wednesday brought an unexpected development. A woman named Jennifer Blackwell called. Mr. Brennan, this is Jennifer Blackwell. I'm the CEO of Blackwell Industries. I sat up straighter. Ms. Blackwell, I wanted to call you personally to discuss the situation with Jake. I'm listening. We terminated his employment yesterday. I'm sure you're aware. I am. What you may not be aware of is why. We didn't fire him just because of the application misrepresentation. We fired him because several employees came forward with concerns about his behavior. What kind of concerns? Primarily his treatment of support staff. Apparently, he'd been dismissive and condescending to administrative assistants, custodial staff, cafeteria workers. One admin assistant filed a complaint that he'd told her she was lucky to work for someone from a family like his. I closed my eyes. Jesus. The wedding video brought all of this to light. People who'd been uncomfortable with his attitude suddenly felt empowered to speak up. And the picture they painted was not flattering. I appreciate you telling me this. I wanted you to know because the video's been making you out to be some kind of victim, and from what I've seen, you are. But I also wanted you to know that your son's problems go deeper than just the wedding incident. He's got attitude issues that predate Melissa and her family. Are you saying this is my fault? That I raised him wrong? No. Her voice was firm. I'm saying he made choices, bad choices, and those choices have consequences. But I also wanted to tell you that several employees mentioned that Jake used to talk about you before he got engaged. What did he say? That you were the hardest working man he'd ever known. That you built something from nothing and taught him everything about integrity and effort. That he wanted to make you proud. I couldn't speak. I don't know what changed, Jennifer continued, but somewhere along the way, he lost sight of that, and I think maybe he needs to hit rock bottom to remember it. Thank you, I managed. One more thing. If Jake ever gets his head straight and wants to reapply to Blackwell, tell him to call me personally. I believe in second chances for people who actually learn from their mistakes, but he's got a lot of learning to do first. She hung up. I sat in my office, staring at the wall, thinking about the kid Jake used to be. The one who'd been proud of his father. The one who'd wanted to make me proud. What happened to that kid? Rachel found me an hour later, still sitting there. You okay? She asked. He used to want to make me proud, I said. I know. When did that stop mattering to him? I don't know. Maybe when he met someone who made him feel ashamed instead. Or maybe I stopped mattering long before that. Rachel knelt beside my chair. Don't do that. Don't blame yourself for his choices. Who else should I blame? Him, Melissa, her poisonous mother, society's obsession with class and status, anyone but yourself. You were a good father, Richard, a great father. Jake's choices are his own. Then why does it feel like I failed him? Because you're a parent. That's what parents do. We second-guess everything, wondering if we could have done more, said more, been more. But at some point, our kids become adults. They make their own choices, and we can't protect them from the consequences. I'm not protecting him. I'm causing the consequences. You're revealing the consequences that were always there. He built a house of cards. You didn't make it fall. You just stopped holding it up. I looked at my wife, this woman who'd stood beside me through everything. Do you think he'll ever understand? I asked. I don't know, but I think if he doesn't, you'll survive. We'll survive, and maybe that has to be enough. Maybe it did. Thursday was quiet. No calls, no texts, just silence. I imagined Jake and Melissa in their apartment, packing boxes, fighting about whose fault everything was. I imagined him finally seeing his bride for what she really was, someone who'd only loved the idea of him, not the reality. I imagined Melissa's mother, desperate to maintain her daughter's social standing, scrambling to find someone to blame for the catastrophe. I imagined them all, finally understanding what they'd lost when they decided I was disposable. Friday morning, my phone buzzed. Text from Todd Patterson. Mr. Brennan, thought you should know, Melissa's parents are cutting them off financially. They're furious about the social fallout. Jake and Melissa are on their own now, completely. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Thank you for keeping me informed." His response came immediately. Are you going to help him? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Then I typed, not yet. He hasn't learned the lesson yet. How will you know when he has? I'll know. I put the phone down and looked out my office window at the autumn leaves falling from the trees in our yard. The ones I'd planted when Jake was 5. The ones we used to rake together on weekends. I wondered if he remembered that. Wondered if he remembered any of the good times, or if Melissa had convinced him that his entire childhood was something to be ashamed of. I wondered if he'd ever find his way back to who he really was. And I wondered if, when he did, I'd still be here waiting. The first sign came on Sunday afternoon. I was in the garage, pretending to organize tools I'd already organized 3 times when Rachel called my name from the house. Richard, you need to see this. I found her in the living room, laptop open, face pale. What is it? She turned the screen toward me. Facebook. A post from Jake's account, published 20 minutes ago. I need to tell the truth about my father. My heart stopped. Click it, Rachel whispered. I sat beside her, read the whole thing. I need to tell the truth about my father. Not the version my wife and her family have been telling, not the version I've been too cowardly to contradict. The real truth. My father, Richard Brennan, spent his entire life working to give me opportunities he never had. He built a construction company from nothing. He worked 18-hour days, he missed vacations, drove old cars, lived modestly, all so he could save money for my future. When I got engaged, he gave me $200,000 for the wedding. I didn't ask. He just gave it because he wanted me to be happy, and I took it like it was owed to me. When I needed references for my job application, I used his business success without asking permission. I implied I had access to family resources that weren't actually available to me. I built my entire professional reputation on his name. When I signed contracts for the wedding, I did it assuming he'd cover the balance. I never asked. I never confirmed. I just assumed dear old Dad would write the check because that's what he'd always done. And when my wife and her mother kicked him out of our wedding, physically escorted him out for being the wrong class, I stood there and let it happen. I let them call him trash. I let them laugh about him after he left. I let them treat the man who gave me everything like he was nothing. Because I was embarrassed. Because I'd bought into the idea that where you come from matters more than who you are. I was wrong. My father is the most honest, hardest working, most principled man I know. And I betrayed him because I wanted to fit into a world that values appearance over character. Now I'm losing everything. My job, my apartment, my reputation, my finances, and honestly, I deserve it. Not because my father is punishing me, but because I built my life on lies and shortcuts and other people's money. I don't know if my father will ever forgive me. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. But I needed to say this publicly because the truth matters. And the truth is that Richard Brennan is a better man than I'll ever be. I'm sorry, Dad, for everything. I read it 3 times. Rachel was crying beside me. He posted it publicly, she whispered. Everyone can see it. I checked. 800 shares in 20 minutes, 1,200 comments. The post was going viral the same way the video had, but this time, the narrative was different. He's taking responsibility, Rachel said. That's what you wanted, isn't it? I don't know what I wanted. Richard. I wanted him to understand. I wanted him to learn, but I didn't know it would feel like this. Feel like what? Like winning and losing at the same time. My phone buzzed. Text from Harvey. Have you seen Jake's Facebook post? I typed, yes. This changes things. Does it? He's taking public responsibility. He's admitting what he did. That's exactly the kind of accountability you wanted him to show. I know. So what are you going to do? I looked at Rachel. She wiped her eyes, took my hand. What do you want to do? She asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. Do I? She squeezed my hand. You're angry. You're hurt. You have every right to be. But you're also his father. And I think you need to decide which one of those things is going to define what happens next. My phone rang. Jake. I stared at the screen. 3 days later, Jake signed the loan agreement. Harvey called to confirm. He read every word, asked smart questions, understood the terms completely. He knows if he defaults, you can pursue legal action. Did he hesitate? Not once. Whatever you said to him, it got through. We'll see. Richard, I think he's actually trying. Trying isn't enough. Follow through is what matters. The first payment was due in 30 days. I'd know by then if this was real. Jake's eviction became final the following Monday. I didn't help him move, didn't offer storage, didn't ask where he was going. Rachel texted him to say she loved him and hoped he was okay, but even she maintained distance. We needed to know if he could handle this alone. Todd Patterson called Tuesday afternoon. "Mr. Brennan, I thought you should know. Jake's been staying with me for the past week." "Has he?" "He asked if he could crash on my couch, said he didn't want to ask you because he's trying to prove he can handle things himself." "Is he paying rent?" "He insisted. $200 a week. It's more than the couch is worth, but he said he needs to get used to paying his own way." "How's he doing?" "Honestly, he's a mess. But he's a productive mess. He's been applying to jobs nonstop. Interviewed at 4 places already. Nothing fancy. Sales positions, administrative work, entry-level stuff. He's not being picky." "Good." "He talks about you sometimes. Says he's trying to understand what it was like building your company from nothing. Says he never appreciated how hard you worked." "Is he asking you to tell me these things?" "No. He specifically said not to call you. I'm calling because I think you should know your strategy is working." "What strategy?" "The tough love thing. He's not curled up feeling sorry for himself. He's angry. But he's angry at himself, not you. And he's channeling it into actually trying to rebuild." "Call me when he gets a job," I said. "Not before." "Will do." I hung up. Rachel had been listening from the doorway. "He's trying. Trying doesn't mean succeeding. Richard, give him some credit. I'll give him credit when he earns it. Right now, he's just doing what he should have been doing all along, being an adult." She sighed. "You're being very hard." "Good. He needs hard right now." The call from Melissa came on Thursday. I recognized the number. She'd called from it before. This time I answered. "Mr. Brennan, we need to talk." "I don't think we do." "You've destroyed my marriage. You destroyed your marriage when you kicked me out of your wedding." "That's not fair." "Fair is me removing my financial support from a son who chose to humiliate me. Fair is you discovering that Jake's value wasn't in his family connections. Fair is you learning that treating people like garbage has consequences. You're vindictive. I'm thorough. There's a difference. I loved him. You loved what you thought he represented. Once you realized he couldn't deliver that, you left. That's not love. That's transaction. You don't know anything about me. I know you married my son assuming I'd be your personal ATM. I know you encouraged him to cut ties with his family so he'd be dependent on yours. I know you laughed when your mother called me a genetic embarrassment. That tells me everything I need to know about you." Silence. "Is he okay?" she asked finally, and her voice had changed. Softer, almost genuine. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm not a monster. I made mistakes. I see that now, but I did care about him, before everything fell apart. Then you should have treated his father with respect, because his father was the only thing holding up the life you wanted. I know that now. Too late." "Is he okay?" she asked again. "He's learning. That's all you need to know." "Can you tell him?" She stopped. "Never mind." "Tell him what?" "That I'm sorry. That I was wrong. That I let my mother poison me against him and against you. That I wish I'd been stronger." "Tell him yourself. He won't answer my calls." "Then I guess you'll have to live with that." I hung up. Rachel raised her eyebrows. That was cold. Was it? She apologized. She apologized for getting caught, not for what she did. There's a difference. Maybe. She destroyed my son's self-respect, made him ashamed of who he was, convinced him that people like us were beneath him. And now that it's blown up in her face, she wants sympathy? I'm not saying give her sympathy. I'm just saying you might want to be careful about turning into the villain of this story. I'm not the villain. I'm the consequence. Sometimes, Rachel said quietly, those are the same thing. Friday brought the call I'd been waiting for. Dad, I got a job. Jake's voice, excited, nervous, proud. Where? Henderson Construction Supply. It's a warehouse position, $40,000 a year, benefits after 90 days. I start Monday. Henderson Construction Supply. I knew the owner. Pete Henderson and I had done business for 15 years. Did you use my name? I asked. No. I told them I had experience in the construction industry and understood the business. They asked where, and I said I'd worked summers for a company that no longer exists. Which is true. And they hired you? They hired me because I knew more about construction materials than anyone else they'd interviewed. Turns out spending summers on your job sites actually taught me something. I felt something in my chest loosen. When do you start? Monday morning, 7 a.m. I'll be loading trucks, managing inventory, handling customer orders. It's not glamorous. No. But it's honest, and it's mine. I earned it on my own. Yes, you did. Dad? His voice got quiet. Thank you. I didn't get you the job. You taught me what I needed to know to get the job. That's the same thing. No, it's not. But you're welcome anyway. Can I come by this weekend? See you and Mom? I thought about that. Sunday dinner, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. I won't. And Jake? Yeah? Bring your first paycheck stub when you get it. I want to see proof you're actually showing up. You don't trust me? I'm learning to trust you. There's a difference. Fair enough. That Sunday, Jake showed up at 5:45, early, nervous, holding flowers for his mother. Rachel cried when she saw him, hugged him so hard he winced. But she didn't ask about money or troubles, just told him she loved him and was proud of him. We ate dinner, pot roast, Jake's favorite. We didn't talk about Melissa or the wedding or the disaster. We talked about his new job, his co-workers, the things he was learning. He talked about Pete Henderson, who'd apparently told him, "Your dad and I did business for years. He was the straightest shooter I ever knew. You've got big shoes to fill." What did you say? I asked. I said I was trying, that I'd made mistakes, but I was working to fix them, and he said that was good enough for him. After dinner, Jake helped Rachel with dishes. I watched them through the kitchen doorway, mother and son, laughing about something, like old times. When he left, he stopped at the door. Dad? Yeah? I got my first paycheck Friday. After taxes, it was $1,400. That's not bad. It's 1/3 of what I was making at Blackwell, and you know what? What? It feels better, because I earned it. That's the difference between income and integrity, I said. You're learning. He left. Rachel came up beside me, slipped her arm through mine. He's going to be okay, she said. Maybe. You helped him. I gave him a chance to help himself, that's all. That's everything. The weeks rolled forward. Jake made his first loan payment on time, sent a text with a photo of the check. Payment 1 of 60. I won't miss a single one. He didn't. His second month at Henderson, he got a small raise. Pete called me to say Jake was the best warehouse manager he'd had in years. I thanked him and hung up before he could hear my voice crack. The lawsuit from the wedding venue settled. Jake paid $20,000 over 2 years, money he'd have to earn through overtime and sacrifice. He didn't complain, just made the payments. His bankruptcy petition went through in November, credit destroyed, starting over from zero, but starting over with a job and a plan, and finally some self-respect. Thanksgiving, we invited him to dinner. He brought a friend, not Todd, a woman named Amy, quiet, kind, a teacher. She shook my hand and said, Jake talks about you all the time. He says you're the reason he's getting his life back together. I'm the reason it fell apart, I said. No, Jake interjected. You're the reason I learned what actually matters. There's a difference. We ate. We laughed. We avoided talking about Melissa or the wedding or anything that hurt. But afterwards, Jake asked to speak to me alone. We went out to the garage, the place where we'd always had our real conversations. Dad, I need to tell you something. Okay. I saw Melissa last week. My stomach tightened. And? She wanted to apologize, really apologize, said she's been in therapy, said she realizes how toxic her mother was, how toxic she became, how she destroyed something good because she was obsessed with status. What did you say? I said thank you for the apology. But I'm not interested in reconciliation. Why not? Because I'm not the person she married, and she's not the person I thought I married. We were playing roles, and when those roles disappeared, there was nothing left. You loved her once. I loved the idea of her, the lifestyle she represented, the future I thought she'd give me. But I didn't love her. Not really. Because if I had, I wouldn't have let her treat you the way she did. I nodded. That's mature of you. I'm trying to be mature. I'm almost 30. It's about time. We stood there in silence for a while, just father and son, in a garage that smelled like motor oil and sawdust. I'm proud of you, I said finally. Don't be. Not yet. I've got 4.5 more years of payments to you, a decade of rebuilding my credit, a lifetime of proving I'm not the person I became when I married Melissa. You're already proving it. Then be proud of me in 5 years, when I've actually followed through. Fair enough. December came with cold and snow and Jake working overtime to make extra money for Christmas. He bought modest gifts, nothing expensive, but thoughtful. For Rachel, a cookbook from the diner on Maple Street. They'd had them printed up, vintage style, with all their classic recipes. For me, a picture frame with a photo inside. Jake and me. Construction site. He was 16, covered in dust, grinning. Where did you find this? I asked. Mom had it. She said you kept it on your desk until I graduated college. I did. Why'd you take it down? Because I thought I'd lost that kid. You didn't lose him. He just got lost for a while. And now? Now he's trying to find his way back.